Hello everybody, Daz here. Recently I received another mystery box and this time it was from Alphacool and it contains a few new water cooling products they released in past few months. And that reminds me how long ago I did any water cooling product reviews, which is supposed to be a foundation of this channel. To address that, I pulled the most interesting part from the box, and today we will be discussing Alphacool Reservoir-Pump Combo for D5. It has German names that are really hard to pronounce. I will do it one time and after that I only will refer it as a Reservoir-Pump Combo. So the product name is Eisbecher or Eisbecher, whatever it is in German, I don't care. This is the Reservoir-Pump Combo and that's how we refer to this moving forward. I already unpacked it slightly so we don't need to struggle with any type of boxes and stuff like this. So what you will find inside basically is three parts. You have a pre-assembled Reservoir-Pump Combo itself of the size of the reservoir you choose. This is 200mm tube. It also comes 150mm tube. So if this is too big for you, the shorter version is available. You have a bag with a mounting for D5 pump and the legs that you attach to bottom reservoir, so you can put it on bottom of your case, and a little piece of paper discussing what kind of content of the box you have and how to assemble the item if you're not sure how to do it on your own. So what do we have here? First of all, when you pull this thing out, you will notice how big and chunky is a D5 top part is. It's basically huge. This thing look like a good size of the hammer, and also it's weighed a ton as well. I was really puzzled why it's so big, because it's almost twice as big as its power part, but there was apparently a design reason for that we'll discuss a little bit later in a second. For the remaining of the product we have a tube part attached to the top itself, and it contains a few additional parts such as a fountain effect tubes in the middle and also some sort of plastic mesh part that on the bottom of the reservoir, it helps to prevent air bubbles to be sucked back to the pump, and it helps with the bleeding process in the beginning of the filling up your loop. Two brackets already pre-assembled on this product. It allows you multiple ways to connect or hang your product inside of your computer case. Those long brackets that you can detach, by the way, you can put your product on pre-drilled holes for 120mm fans or 140mm fans. So it can be case itself, can be case and fan, or can be radiator and fan. So different type of things. If it's not something you're looking for and you potentially want to bolt it straight to the case, you can remove those two brackets, wider ones, and just use a smaller part of the bracket that allows you a little bit less intrusive looks, a little bit stealth look, so it will look nicer instead of having this huge brackets slapped on the back of your case, for example. So that can be done. And finally, you can completely remove brackets if you unscrew the top cover. You can put it back. And the same for the bottom one. And there's a number of holes pre-drilled right on different sides of the D5 reservoir top, and so you can basically pre-drill holes in your case or use existing holes in your case, or you have some other third-party bracket that can you hang the product not by holding its tube but attaching the bottom of it. So this is a lot of options you can have here. So let's remove brackets so we can talk about the rest of the product. So I took this out. Oh, one thing that I forgot to mention, that I kind of not very big fan of how the brackets attach to this particular product. As you can see, when I put it, let me assemble it back. Here you go. So I completely screw it. So it's tight, not leaking, but this is totally loose. So basically it means that the whole assembly can turn any way you want, or just shake if you're moving your computer to some other place. So I would prefer that this bracket, when you tied up the product, will be fixed, but it's really loose. And that part, I don't think it's very good idea, but it is what it is. So let's get rid of the brackets and speak a little bit about the rest of the item we have in our hands. So what do I have here? The tube itself has a very coarse type of threads. I think it's a little bit of a disadvantage comparing, let's say, with the smaller threads used on AK or Beats Power product. The reason for that is that if you use a colored liquid, then liquid will always go a little bit around those threads. And you will have all those lines. Let's say you put red or blue liquid, so you have those lines, and usually it doesn't look very nice, at least in my opinion. So if the threads will be smaller, it's harder for liquid to go into those threads, and also even if it goes there, it's harder to see it. Those lines of the liquid on those threading is huge and will be obviously visible. So it will give a little bit less refinement of your build if you care about such things. Top of the reservoir has only one port. It has this fountain effect tube attached to it. I usually dislike single port cups for the reason that if you already use this one port to supply your liquid into the reservoir as a part of your liquid cooling loop design, you don't have a second port to put liquid into the reservoir itself. So you have to find other way to fill your loop, which can be a little bit of nuisance. It's much easier to start your loop filling process if you have opportunity to fill your reservoir to the max, start your pump and go from there. So here you have only one port, and it also has this again tube attached to that port for the fountain effect. The hose looks pretty small. I think will add some additional restriction to your loop. With the current generation of pumps, so much power in D5, which is actually designed for this product, so it wouldn't be really much of the issue, but it's nevertheless it will add some additional restriction. If you, after fountain effect itself, I don't know if it looks great or not. I'll try to insert video from Alphacool review of this product itself so you can see a little bit how it looks. But again, for many people who just fill reservoir to the top, I would suggest just to get rid of this tube complete and just don't use it at all, or even cut this part out to get rid of the restriction. The bottom long tube, similar to the one that we have on top, has a different function. It's actually for the supplying liquid in case you're not supplying liquid from the top of the port, and that helps you to make a spacing between the part that is sucking water into the pump and the part that's supplying water in. So again, in the initial type of setup, when you fill the system in, it helps you to separate bubbles and reduce amount of air getting circulating through the system. So this design is rather clever itself. One part that I noticed that despite all my attempts to try to line those things up, those tubes is not always in a straight line. So I try to fix that, but you can see, hopefully you can see that the tubes are not exactly like pointing in each other in perfect direction, so it's a little bit misaligned. Some people with ADD might go crazy about it. It bothered me mildly, but nevertheless, I don't think you have a really way to line them up in absolute perfection. So if it's something that bothers you, keep this in mind. You might want to fill this reservoir with non-transparent liquid and just don't see it at all. So let's look on the bottom, because this have a couple clever things right there. So here you go. We have this tube, and we have this piece of plastic with the holes that actually acting as a filter in a way for the water that contains bubbles, not allow that bubbles go through this filter. Of course, if you have very small fine mist of bubbles that goes through everything, doesn't matter what, but when in initial setup you have a huge bubbles coming in, they will actually bounce from this thingy, kind of a mesh we can call it, and that allows you to reduce amount of air sucked back to the pump. Now I would like to come back to the part in the beginning of my video when I said that this top is absolutely massive and not really even clear why they do it. When I looked on how this top is designed, that answered few questions about the size of this thing. Usually when you have a pump always sucking or need to be supplied liquid in the central part, then impeller spins and pushing air out, and it gets pushed usually from some port which is available at the side of this chamber inside of the pump. So normally you have water supplied right in the middle somehow, right in this particular position. But in this design, in fact, the water coming out of this port and it gets sucked in totally different place. It's actually right under it. If you look on it here, I'll make a close up later, you can see it better. So the water gets sucked in this part and this pushed out in that part. And in order to achieve this change of usual way of things set up in D5 type or DDC type of tops, they have to increase the height of this top in order to route all the holes in the proper way. That has some advantages, some disadvantages. Disadvantages are obviously this massive size, and I think also increased cost because you need more material. It also has a bunch of 90-degree turns inside of the top, so hydraulics performance probably will be not as good as other models. So in terms of performance, I firmly believe that this complicated, intricate, complete changing direction of the liquid inside of this block of plastic will reduce your flow rate or your amount of liquid coming through the system. Don't think it will be like 10 degrees difference, but it can be easily cost you 1 degree just because you're turning liquid too much inside of this block of plastic. On the positive side, this top has absolutely unique setup of inlet and outlet port, and also how the liquid get routed inside of the reservoir portion of it. Usually you have liquid coming kind of on the side of a reservoir that creates your vortex effects when the liquid spinning inside of reservoir create more troubles with the bleeding process. Here, because the liquid get pushed into reservoir right in the middle, it's reduced your vortex effects, and second allows to use this fountain effect if it's something that you're after, because it's going in the middle of the tube and everything is symmetrical, perfect like this. At the same time, sucking function moved from the middle of the design on the side of the design, but this doesn't matter, who cares about this, because you know usually it doesn't affect how things look for you at all. And to complete with what else is included with this particular product, let's talk a little bit about the mounting mechanism for this D5 pump. So you have a bracket coming, which has interesting design of 8 screws instead of usual 4. Most of other manufacturers use usually 4 screws design. This has 8. And the benefit of it, it's not because 8 is bad and it's less chance of risk of leaking or anything like this. It's because there's still people who do things for the first time, and acetal that this product is made of is actually soft material, and sometimes people paranoid and they strip threads. So actually you can install the whole thing on 4 screws and it will be the same result if it's happened to be on 8 screws. But if for any reason you screwed up and you strip your thread on this top because you just turn your screwdriver a little bit more enthusiastically than you should, you have a second screw that will 100% protect you. You will have no problems whatsoever. So this is a little bit clever thing for noobs. And the last part that is included is, along with screws and stuff like that we don't need to discuss here, it's a little legs that you attach to the pump at the bottom, and that allows you to put pump right on the bottom of your case, if that's how you want to mount it, because we remember you have a bracket that allows you to hang entire thing on your radiator or whatever case, fan holes, or you can put on the bottom. So in terms of the mounting ways, that covers you 100% all the way you can only imagine. Now, so what do I have here? the bottom line of this product review. In terms of the performance, I would say that this product probably will be decrease your performance in a very small way, because it's add 2 points of additional restriction, which is usually not property of other competing product. So the fountain effect part, because little holes that you have to push your liquid through, it's like almost like impeachment plate inside of the CPU block. So this will add 1 point of restriction. This convoluted design inside of the pump top that allows you to make this unique type of inlet and outlet setup will also add a little bit of restriction. So I can't put like firm number on it, but I would say that it might cost you 1 degree or so. I quite possibly see it just because of these 2 parts. Usually you try to add aftermarket top in order to increase your performance. Here we have a little bit of backward process in a way, if you want to. Secondly, the looks really hard to comment on this one, because for example for me it's a little bit too bulky and lacks of certain elegance comparing with let's say Beats Power products that I would probably put like on top of the design I personally like, or even AK also look a little bit more balanced in a way, because you have such a big chunk of plastic on the bottom and those misaligned tubes, so those little things that might bother certain people and or might not. So for that reason you need to decide for yourself if you like the looks or you don't care about looks at all. So don't worry, it just works just the same way as anything else. And the last thing that you definitely need to touch, because we don't live in a vacuum out of our financial possibilities, I also quickly look up on how much products cost comparing with everything else. So this is basically will be your lowest cost option comparing with other mainstream water cooling products. If you add, I will speak about Canadian dollars, but you at least you get some sense of what's the difference between different product offerings. So we're speaking about Alphacool thing plus, let's say you add a D5 pump from my store. So the whole setup will cost you about $200 Canadian. If you move towards AK, we don't speak about all little differences and what you get more here and there. But if you're moving to AK, it will cost you about 20 bucks more. If you're looking for Beats Power, will be the high-end type of setup, that will be almost $265. So $65 more than this. And if we're talking about water cool, the new sexy heat killer reservoir and pump combo similar to that I definitely will look in one of my future videos, that will be cost just as much as Beats Power. So you can see that if you're on a budget, this is absolutely valid option. It's your lowest cost option. I don't know, maybe something else exists that will be even cheaper than this, but Alphacool has a decent reputation for quality. You don't have too many issues. At least in my store, I don't have too many issues with RMA on water cool. So maybe it's not as pretty as something else, which is more expensive, but it's absolutely perfect working device that you can put in your computer. And on that, I would like to conclude it. I hope you found this review helpful. It might help you to decide if that's something that you're looking for. And I will come back with more items that I would like to discuss, and hopefully you will find this interesting as well.